Hello, thank you for watching another video. Today's lesson that I want to share with you is about author's purpose. And I'm going to use Because of Winn-Dixie again, because it is a great way for me to show that once we get into a book and we know the genre and we've been thinking about it using our inner voice, we can start thinking about why did the author write this text, whether it be for information for us to learn or whether it be for fiction and realistic fiction for us possibly to relate to the story. So we know that Because of Winn-Dixie is a realistic fiction book, that they are made up characters. However, this is a scenario, this is a situation that truly could happen. So at this point with my students, I would read into the chapters, the next chapter, and talk with them about thinking, why would the author write this book? What is it that the author wants us to walk away from this book thinking? When we set this book down, how will we remember this book? What are the themes of this book? How did the characters possibly inspire us? What are the things that happened to the characters inside of the plot that kept us interested in wondering how they would navigate the different things that happened to them? So we are on chapter 4, and what I would say to my students is, so we're continuing with Because of Winn-Dixie today, and we have learned a lot about the preacher, we've learned a lot about Opal, and we are so excited to get to know Winn-Dixie. So today as I'm reading, we've gotten far enough into this fiction, this realistic fiction novel, this book of knowing, getting to know the characters, getting to know the setting, and the plot is really developing. So I'm at a point as a reader where I'm wondering, why did the author write this book? What is this book really about? So today as I'm reading, I'm thinking about the author's purpose for writing this book, wondering, what does the author want us thinking about, and what does the author want us to remember when we're done with the book? So here we go. Chapter 4. 1, said the preacher. We were sitting on the couch and Winn-Dixie was sitting between us. Winn-Dixie had already decided that he liked a couch a lot. 1, said the preacher again. Winn-Dixie looked at him kind of hard. Your mama was funny. She could make just about anybody laugh. 2, he said. She had red hair and freckles. Just like me? I said. Just like you, the preacher nodded. 3, she liked to plant things. She had a talent for it. She could stick a tire in the ground and grow a car. Winn-Dixie started chewing on his paw, and I tapped him on the head to make him stop. 4, said the preacher. She could run fast. If you were racing her, you couldn't ever let her get a head start, because she would beat you for sure. I'm that way too, I said. Back home in Watley, I raced Liam Fulterton and beat him, and he said it wasn't fair because boys and girls shouldn't race each other to begin with. I told him he was just a sore loser. The preacher nodded. He was quiet for a minute. I'm ready for number 5, I told him. 5, he said. She couldn't cook. She burned everything, including water. She had a hard time opening a can of beans. She couldn't make head nor tail of a piece of meat. 6, the preacher rubbed his nose and looked up at the ceiling. Winn-Dixie looked up too. Number 6 is that your mama loved a story. She would sit and listen to stories all day long. She loved to be told a story. She especially liked funny ones, stories that made her laugh. The preacher nodded his head like he was agreeing with himself. What's number 7? I asked. Let's see, he said. She knew all the constellations, every planet in the nighttime sky, every last one of them. She could name them and point them out, and she never got tired of looking up at them. Number 8, the preacher said, with his eyes closed, was that she hated being a preacher's wife. She said she just couldn't stand having the ladies at church judge what she was wearing and what she was cooking and how she was singing. She said it made her feel like a bug under a microscope. Winn-Dixie lay down on the couch. He put his nose in the preacher's lap and his tail in mine. 10, said the preacher. 9, I told him. 9, said the preacher. She drank. She drank beer and whiskey and wine. Sometimes she couldn't stop drinking, and that made me and your mama fight quite a bit. Number 10, he said with a long sigh. Number 10 is that your mama loved you. She loved you very much. But she left me, I told him. She left us, said the preacher softly. I could see him pulling his old turtle head back into his stupid turtle shell. She packed her bags and left us, and she didn't leave one thing behind. Okay, I said. I got up off the couch when Dixie hopped off too. Thank you for telling me, I said. I went right back to my room and wrote down all 10 things that the preacher had told me. I wrote them down just the way he said them to me so that I wouldn't ever forget them. And then I read them out loud to Winn-Dixie until I had them all memorized. I wanted to know those 10 things inside and out. That way, if Mama ever came back, I could recognize her and I would be able to grab her and hold onto her tight and not let her go away from me again. So as a reader, I'm starting to understand why the author wrote this book. At this point, the author's purpose is revealing itself to me. And I believe the author wrote this book for us to connect with other people. And the way that the preacher describes the 10 things about his wife who left their family is quite beautiful, actually, because as a person, I'm reading it and thinking people are quite human. All of us have wonderful qualities, and all of us also have qualities about us that are not very good. And the preacher shared those. And he actually shared why the mother had those anxieties and maybe why she made some of her bad choices. The ladies at church were very hard on her, and it sounds like she couldn't handle it. I'm also noticing that the author is showing us that the preacher is very sad to tell his daughter this, his 10-year-old daughter, all these different things. And that the preacher is very careful to tell 8 awesome things about her, and then to end it with real things in the 9th. But then the very last thing, the 10th thing that he shares, he makes sure that his daughter knows how much that his mother, although flawed, loved her so much. And in my mind, I'm thinking that this author created this story about these characters that are very real, these characters that have wonderful qualities, yet every human being has its flaws. And I'm also noticing how the author is showing how this little girl, this 10-year-old girl, so wants to know her mother that she has dared to ask her preacher father. Now that Winn-Dixie has come, she's gotten a little bit of courage to ask her father about her mother. She maybe feels old enough to. And that her desire is so deep to just know her past. And whatever the past is, she just wants to know her mother so badly. So really at this point, I am thinking that the author has written this book for me to think about people and people's real lives and how our lives are incredibly beautiful, but all of our lives are lined and have a little bit of sadness. And so now I'm wondering, how is this little girl going to go forward now that she knows 9 wonderful things about her mother and 1 sad thing? And how is the preacher going to go forward that he shared 9 wonderful things about the mother and that he's shared the reason why that she's left? So I really think the author's purpose in writing this book is for us as human beings, us as readers, to connect with this realistic fiction, although it might not be a factual story, a true story. It feels very real and it feels very human. And it makes me feel very connected to other human beings. And I can't wait to keep reading on to see what else I can experience through these characters, of possibly building my own empathy for other people and thinking about why it's important to treat people with kindness, because you don't know exactly what other people have encountered in their lives. So I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson about sharing with our students about thinking about why an author has written the text, and again connecting into that an author has a purpose for his or her writing, and as we read we want to think about that purpose, and inside of thinking about that purpose, knowing, so this author, Kate DeCamio, probably chose realistic fiction because she wanted it to feel very real. She wanted us as readers to connect with the story and empathize with the characters, and probably relate back to our own lives of seeing that life is beautiful, but life does have its problems, and how we go about navigating the beauty and the problems of life, coming out with joy on the other side. Thank you so much and take care.